Welcome to The View with Vertex, the show that takes you behind the scenes with some of the most influential people, personalities, and companies shaping the scaffolding industry. This next episode is brought to you by Scaffchamp, powered by Layher. Layher are an absolute juggernaut of innovation and efficiency within the scaffolding sector, along with their great partners KEWAZO. KEWAZO are doing great things to address labour shortages and the risks of manual handling in the construction industry. Like, subscribe, and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Welcome back to a very special edition of the View with Vertex. We are here in Vilnius, Lithuania for Scaffchamp 2024, powered by Layher. Sat with our next guest. He's Mark Corkery of the Scaffolding Association of Australia and Scaffold Studio. Welcome to the View with Vertex.
Mate, thank you for having me.
It's really great to have you on. How are you finding Scaffchamp so far?
Oh, it's insane. It's like we got turned up this morning and it's all set up, ready to go, and people are flooding in the gates. And so there's a great vibe. Everyone's drinking. The weather's beautiful. So, I think it's been a great couple of days.
Australia, you brought the weather with you.
Well, that's it. Must have.
So, I was speaking earlier on to a guy you probably know quite well, Simon Boys of Scaffplan. The Scaffold Association of Australia was started up there, really, didn't it, in Queensland?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so the Scaffold Association used to be just the Queensland branch, and they'd been around almost 30 years. And so they realised that there was a need to go national for a number of reasons. And then one was obviously making sure that we can benefit and support the entire scaffolding community of Australia. So yeah, they made the switch last year from being just a Queensland branch to being in New South Wales. And so this year we've worked really hard on getting state committees up, and so we've got now state committees in 5 of the 7 states, and so they're now sort of working autonomously, building up and supporting their local area while still working under the banner of the national association.
And does WA still stand for wait a while? Or are they quite forward thinking? Because really, when you think of Australia and you think scaffolding, it's the Pilbara, right? It's like kind of a lot of people from overseas, certainly myself. That's what you go to Australia for. If you're a scaffolder, you want to work on the mines and some of these big projects.
Yeah, and so I think this was why it was so important to get the state chairs up and running and those state committees working, because obviously every state's got their own sort of unique sort of challenges. So obviously, WA is far more into mining. There's a lot more shutdown work, and it's a very different industrial style scaffold compared to places like Sydney and Melbourne, where it's a lot more residential houses and apartment buildings and that sort of thing. And the way the Australian training works at the moment, it is a national training certificate. So the high risk work licence is a national course. And so state to state, they don't have a lot of say in how it goes. It is a national sort of one. And so that was one of the great benefits of actually going from a state-based to a national association is now the Scaffolding Association of Australia has a seat at the standards board, so that we can actually start to guide and really have a say on those training methods. And
it's all people from industry, right? The Scaffold Association of Australia, it's mainly, people like yourself, Simon, from a scaffolding background.
Yeah, that's it. And so we've got a really good, the association's based, obviously everyone is in the scaffolding industry, but they all come from different walks of life. So we've got the chair, Rob Thies, is a scaffold design engineer, and owns a company in Queensland called Construct, who specialise in high-risk engineering and really complex projects. Down to some of the other board members own scaffold companies, down to we've got safety and training guys. And so what that gives us is a real sort of broad range of knowledge and skills. And so when the association meets, everyone's there to support and learn off each other, and it sort of creates a really collaborative environment.
It sounds like, exactly what other countries should be learning from, and I think that's probably one of the things that I think a lot of people have missed with Scaffchamp. I think it just seems like a bit of fun, a competition and all the rest of it. But there's so many opportunities for learning from, the way people do things in different regions and part of the world.
Oh, it's great. And so like the associations, we've already been trying to partner. So we've signed memorandums of understanding with SANS, which is the New Zealand Association. And then so like they've been established for quite a long time, and they're really sort of well versed in sort of making and sort of helping guide that sort of collaboration between government and the industry. And so it's always really good to sort of get over here. And we've met people from America, from London, from obviously all out through Europe. And so it's great to be able to sort of talk to people and learn how they do things, and sort of realise that there are other ways outside of your backyard to improve and collaborate.
Yeah, so many opportunities for business. Even it's a networking event.
Oh, it's great, but it's a lot of fun. And like I've just walked in from outside, and the sun's shining. Everyone's having beer and food and talking, and there's music, and it's great. And that's a really great way to sort of start it. But it's also a really interesting place where all these great scaffolding minds and skills come together to sort of learn off each other. So whilst we're here, we're one of the referees for tomorrow's event, which we're very excited about. And we had a meeting only about 20 minutes ago with all the referees talking about the scaffold design, how they're going to do it safely and effectively, and then what we're looking for. And even within that room, there's varies of opinion on what's best practice, how we want to do things, what do we want to see. And so it's really good to sort of realise that there's this wealth of knowledge that you don't come across every day, because you sort of get stuck in your own little bubble in your own city or your own country. And so it was amazing sort of listening to some of these some of the best scaffolding minds in the world, discussing how to do it and how to do it in the best sort of practice.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes what we get lost in. We get it tends to be an argument. My way is better than your way. There's a real collaborative feel to people saying, well, in this region we do this. Oh yeah, we could do that. It does have that sort of vibe to it, where people are trying to collaborate rather than being, thinking that their way is the best way, right?
Yeah, and that's it. And so almost the guideline at the end of it, the discussion was, whilst this isn't a country or based sort of rules, Scaffplan is the Scaffchamps. They've the rules and the way we're going to design the course tomorrow is best practice for the event. And so we feel it's the safest way to do it. And I think that's really great that we've taken bits from different countries and different learnings to create this show.
Yeah, I mean, we can probably talk about some of that as well, because this will go out after the event, so we're not like giving any inside information or secrets away. But one of the things that they've, the part of the structure that they build for the competitions is a cantilever. And all throughout the building of the safe system of work, all throughout the planning of the event, we've been referring to it as the Australian method.
Yeah.
Which is, the pushing out the braces of the cantilever that are in compression, and laying the decks out across the ledges rather than trying to feed them out over onto a transom, and using the short deck, the like 109 deck or 1.4 deck across the guardrails to form like this temporary edge protection to walk out to the end of the cantilever. It's a really innovative kind of method.
Yeah, it's great. And so we had the pleasure of actually seeing Layher in Sydney last year showing out that method in really good detail. And so it's quite a clever way to be able to remain safe at all times, but still move quite effectively throughout the job. So it's not a really time suck, because obviously at the end of the day, this is an event, it's a bit of fun, but the skills people learn here can then transfer into their everyday lives with scaffolding, and then anything that they might learn and take back to their respective countries is a great thing.
Yeah, it's always a win. So what was your beginnings in scaffolding? How did you end up in the trade yourself?
So I started right at the bottom. So I started as a labourer, carrying jacks and standards and trannies around the job site covered in mud. And then we sort of built our way up from there. So worked our way up to a leading hand, and then we ran our own labour company where we subcontracted out delivering scaffolding.
That seems to be quite a common thing in Australia. It used to be in the UK also, like labour-only companies we would call them. And it seems to die off a little bit. I don't know whether it was changing regulation or changing the way, maybe even tax law. I have no idea, but it seems to die out a little bit. But there does seem to be a bit of a resurgence of companies who just provide the labour.
Yeah, it does provide a lot of flexibility to different companies, and so it reduces the overall overheads of the actual scaffold companies themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of obviously there's a lot of money and time involved in winning projects and getting them ready and storing and the material itself, and then so to add labour on top of that, if you had it and you were paying them every week, regardless if there was work or not, there's a huge risk and a huge overhead, and so the labour only companies actually I think make a really a lot of sense, especially in the Australian market where it's quite fast-paced and there's a lot of different projects on at the go. So it allows companies to sort of work for 2 or 3 different places, bounce around, work on a project. Once they finish that project, move on to the next one. And so I don't know what it's like in England, but at the moment Australia is really sort of struggling with highly skilled workers.
Oh yeah.
And so finding advanced scaffolders who have a lot of experience. Unfortunately, scaffolding is a really hard industry, and it's hard on the body, hard on the bones, and so. A lot of the older scaffolders are looking to sort of retire, and unfortunately there goes 20 or 30 years of knowledge and skills sort of with them. And so I guess that's probably the other benefit of actually having labour in the company.
Yeah.
It does help sort of share that knowledge around a little bit more so that these projects are actually performed by highly skilled scaffolders instead of just whoever people can hire because that's all they could get.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the issue that LiftBot are also, trying to address is like these skilled people, they want to do the skilled job. They don't want to be standing in a chain all day passing materials. Like you say, it's hard on the body. Are we going to keep those, bright minds, the brightest and the best in scaffolding for as long as we need to keep them in scaffolding for? If we're losing them to, manual handling related injuries and, long-term health conditions because of manual handling.
Yeah, and that's a great point because that's the thing. Like the LiftBot, anything you can do to reduce that manual handling and the loading is just brilliant for the industry by reducing the load and hopefully keeping people around for longer.
Before you joined Scaffold Association of Australia, were you in a contract scaffolding background or?
Yes.
So the labour-only company?
Yeah, so we sort of ran a subby company, so we sort of worked out and we'd sort of work for a few different companies, filling their labour needs. And then we sort of transitioned into being a supervisor for a residential scaffolding company where we looked after somewhere between 50 and 75 scaffolding sites all at once around Sydney. So it was a lot to sort of handle and keep an eye on and sort of make sure that everything stays compliant and stays safe. And so we did that for a number of years. And then in that time, we then sort of transitioned into doing estimating and designing. And then that's sort of where we've really found our passion.
So this is where Scaffold Studio comes about?
Yeah, this was it. So we were introduced to it through working at a company called East Coast. And from there, we decided that we actually had quite a talent for designing and we enjoyed it. And the challenges and obviously coming from an on-site skilled sort of background, it sort of made a real difference in the way we actually looked at designing, where we could sort of imagine the job site, you could see the walls, you could sort of see where this was happening. So on a 2D plan, especially when you're in office, you get sort of separated from the job site and it's very easy to forget that this is a construction site with lots of things going on and lots of other high-risk sort of activities happening. And so the ability to be able to sort of bring that sort of practical background into the design has really been what actually set Scaffold Studio apart, was the fact that we were able to sort of deliver designs that work on site.
Yeah. So it's not what can we build, it's also how can we build it.
Yeah, and then that's it. And so it's sort of that idea of always, we've always got the scaffolders in mind. So whether it's just a simple residential house where we're really focused on making sure the material list is correct. So at the end of the job, they're not carting a stillage of ledges back out the back because no one counted them properly. To commercial jobs where we look at where the beams are, where they're going to cantilever to make sure that it can be done in a safe way.
I was asking Ben Bowman about this same thing the other day, and I said one of the main criticisms that sort of gets levied at scaffold design engineers is not having the scaffolder in mind and not having the scaffold company's materials in mind. Yeah. Sometimes you've put too much gear in it, you've put too much this, that and the other into it. And I guess there are design engineers that do that, right? That over-engineer through lack of practical experience.
Yeah, and so it does come down to practical experience, but also just comes down to obviously managing your clients, that sort of stuff. And so we've got a great number of clients, and unfortunately, it's part of the beast that sometimes you have stock shortages on certain materials, and so a lot of our clients will reach out to us and say, "Hey, Mark, this week, please do not use any 1-2 ledges. We have no 1-2 ledges," and then that's fine, and we can make those allowances, and it's the way of the world. And so I think the more flexible and you can collaborate with people. you just end up with better results.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I won't take too much more of your time because I know you're desperate to get back out there and talking some more of the event. Where can people get hold of Scaffold Studio?
So Scaffold Studio is an Australian and New Zealand-based scaffold design and engineering company. Website's www.scaffoldstudio.com.au. And then you can all our contact details there, and you can reach out from that.
Yeah, happy days. Well, thank you again for coming on, and enjoy the rest of your time in Vilnius.
Mate, it's been a pleasure.